listening to Nasty Knuckles, the Hockey Outlaws podcast, with your hosts, Derek Nasty Settlemyre and former Philadelphia Flyer enforcer, Riley Cote, as they go behind the scenes with your favorite NHL players. This week's guest is two-time Stanley Cup champion and legendary broadcaster, BILL CLEMENT. Time to face off.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Nasty Knuckles. What's happening, Nasty?
What's up, Rigarelia? You finally made it to one of our men's league games. It's about time. We had you on the IR for a little bit, but you finally got back. Big W the other night. It was a good game, really good game against Team Black.
Yep.
And you were buzzing. You were buzzing.
Good, man. I was on long-term IR there. It's been a while since I tapped them on, so had a lot of energy to give.
I was worried because the first time you played, you hadn't played in so long a few weeks ago, and I remember after one of your shifts, you came off. You're like, "Holy shit, I'm dying, man."
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
But when you, it's like one thing to skate around, but then when you actually like going hard, doing this, as hard as we play, like because we're playing fucking hard.
Oh yeah, it's big time.
No, but it was a good game. Those guys, they got a good team, and it was fun. And our buddy Brian Santora, big sloth there. He was really good in nets, and Diener was a little better with the win there. So it was a good game anyway.
It was.
Boys, a lot of fun having you out there. They can't let us get together because it'll be like Kane and fucking Taves playing together or something.
Yeah, they got to keep us separated, right?
Yeah, I'm totally kidding.
Still on one line.
Totally kidding, man. I'm trying to stand up out there.
Yeah, you and me both.
But we did have a great tournament. Elvis's team, they're from Hollydale, and they went as the Nasty Knuckles Selects. We sponsored them and had a great finish. Came in second. Played a team, good team from Hollydale. They no excuses. I think they had a couple players that might not be really in this division, but they were really good players. But our kids played hard, man, and made Nasty Knuckles very proud.
Oh yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
And they look good doing it. Good job on the jersey design.
Yeah, man.
Form design.
They turned out great, man. We had a lot of people asking about those. So just like our other ones we've been selling. So
yeah,
that's good. It's good, man. It was a good weekend, but big day today, buddy, in the NHL.
Yeah, what do you got? What do you thinking is going to happen today? There's a lot of big names, a lot of big ticket guys.
I know,
some number crunching for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing we were talking about is the number situation at cap. I'm not really a cap guy. I'm actually good with numbers, to be honest. One of the only things in my life I think I'm good at is with math and numbers, but I don't even know what the cap's set at right now, which is embarrassing. I should know. I'm actually going to do that today in between some clients here, go through and see what I got, see what kind of team I can put together. But you're right, man. I mean, there's some huge names. Part of it to me makes me wonder why they're allowing, like, a team wants to get rid of it. I know the money on some guys, but it's also teams are paying guys that much money. If you got a guy making 30 goals these days, they're making $7 million. I mean,
well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. And I think a lot of times guys are unprotected because they're underachieving for the amount of money they're making, right?
True.
If you can unload that money and then, maybe get two guys at a fraction of the price, it's kind of like, I think the philosophy of some of these general managers. But it's not that easy to unload salaries like that. You even know they're big ticket guys with big names, but a lot of times these guys are making the big money after their bigger years, right? So it's hard to justify some of these salaries. So there's obviously an element of risk there too, right? I mean, do you drop, do you grab a guy that's making 10 million that's probably no longer in his prime and is on, and then you're complaining about this guy in the general manager's room of like, oh, this guy's underachieving. We're paying this guy $10 million. So
yeah,
you got to look at a lot of different things. It's just how these guys are able to, go without injuries, right? I mean, just like how many injuries have they had in the last how many years, and and how many games missed have they had? You know what I mean? Because again, if you've signed an older guy, big ticket, and he's on the shelf half the time, what good is that too? So there's obviously a science to this. Vegas did a pretty damn good job a couple of years ago. So, I'd expect Seattle to come out of the gates, firing, because I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those guys. I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
they got an all-star team there to pick from.
They do, and I was watching PJ Stock, our buddy, last night, talking a little bit about it. He was just making a point of, well, he was kind of on a rant a little bit about Carey Price being unprotected and actually maybe wanting to go to Seattle because of his junior days. And I think he's family around there. I'm not really sure. I'm not totally sure on Carey Price, where he's from and his whole background, but I believe he played, if I'm not mistaken, he played Tri-Cities. I could be wrong, but I did. Stalker said something about him playing in Seattle. But anyway, he was like, if they take him, he makes a lot of money though for a goalie. I feel like $10 million for a goalie.
Yeah, and he's on the tail end,
and that's what Stalker was saying. But what if he does go in there and have a year, and you put these pieces around him? He was saying, no offense to Montreal, but they might have a better team than Montreal had.
100%. I agree.
And with Shea Weber maybe having to retire now all of a sudden, who knows? I mean, they probably would have on paper a better looking lineup, right? I mean, they might have a better looking lineup than a few teams.
Yeah.
With these players, but again, it's a fitting pieces into the puzzle with the cap and, trying to figure it out. And Ron Francis is a smart man and a hockey man. I'm sure he's done his homework. Obviously, he's had a lot of he's had a lot of time to do this. And Dave Hackstall, the smart hockey guy, and he's been on the bench the last few years in NHL, seeing these players. And probably has a little bit of it, insight on that as well as the scouts. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's going to be, I'm really fired up actually to see what happens tonight, So
it'll be interesting for sure. And you look back at Vegas a couple years ago, you got Fleury, and there was a lot of people saying, well, Fleury's kind of not that he's done, but like he's not, really
tailing.
Yeah, he's tailing. And then he comes in and proves I'm wrong. I'm not sure the age difference of those two, in the situation that they're in, but goaltending. I say goaltending is everything. It's like if you can have I say in this case, it's not gonna be a franchise goaltender because these guys are gonna be on the, the latter part of their careers. But if you build your team around a solid goaltending, 1, 2.
Yeah,
guys.
Well, they already have the kid from Florida, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
he had a great year.
I think you just give yourself so much better chance to be successful. And then obviously look at the D that they have available and the forwards. Like you have an opportunity to really build out an amazing team there. So
yeah, 100%.
See how it goes down.
Our Flyers here, obviously Big Jake on the list, JVR, Ghost, Hager. Trying to think, even Moose is on there. I think, I don't know if Moose is going to be back. I'm not sure which way the Flyers are going to go, but I heard through the grapevine that he's got some options out there, which is really good to hear because he's just, we've talked about Moose. He's just a Brian Elliott. He's such a pro. He just comes to work every day. I feel like I'm not a GM, but I love him and Carter together. I feel like even one more year, Moose isn't done. Like he's still got game.
Yeah, I agree.
I just love those two together just because of what Moose brings to the table as far as being a pro, helping Carter out. And Carter's mature past, way past his years, but still it's always nice to have that guy that's been through a lot and been through a lot of seasons. And Moose is awesome. So we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be interesting to see who they take from the Flyers and every team really, but
yeah,
I'm kind of excited to watch.
Yeah, me too. Something tells me just knowing JVR and knowing, how much of a pro he is, I could see them taking JVR. I don't think Hack ever had JVR, but I know he knows him well just from, from coaching against him and knowing his past roots and everything like that. But to me, it's like if you want to have a veteran player, obviously there's many other veteran players that are, well established as well. But I think just like a guy that seems to be like a fine wine, he seems to get better with age, and is all about taking care of himself. And I think he'd be a good guy around for the young guys.
He really would.
But exactly right. what the hell do I know? But I could see a guy like JVR getting gobbled up. I'm not sure about Ghost. Voracek, I think. Obviously in his prime, I think, Jake was, definitely would have been sought after, but I think he's a little bit unpredictable right now in his career. And again, you have one crack at this, one cracking at this.
Yeah, one cracking. Nice.
Nice. You got to make sure you hit home runs here, but I'm looking forward to it, man. It'll be interesting.
Me too, man. I saw a rumor, and it's a rumor. I don't know where it even came from, but they were talking about Jake going to St. Louis for Tarasenko.
Oh, okay.
I know one thing, that Jake had his best year ever under Craig Berube, and we've talked about this before. Jake's one of those guys where he needs ice time.
Yeah.
The more he plays, the better he plays, and that's just I know it's sometimes things happen. You get in a game, and it used to drive Jake nuts. I used to laugh because someone take a penalty early. Holy fuck me. Because he knows he's not going on the ice for 2 minutes. He's not killing a penalty. And then another penalty, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? What's going on? If there were a lot of penalties, Jake's losing his mind because he's just sitting there, and he's that guy that likes to play. And you can look at his numbers. I'm not an analytics guy, but you look at the more ice time Jake gets, the better he plays, the more he produces. So anyway, Chief had him. Chief knows him. Chief certainly pushed the right buttons with Jake. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. It's just going to be exciting to see. There'll probably be some surprises.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I think most guys, especially high-end guys, everyone wants to play, right? And the more ice time you get, the more involved you get. But I know what it's like to sit there when there's special teams, especially when you're the fourth line guy. And it's like they start, after the penalty, they start top of the orders. Then you got to go. Yeah,
you got to start over again.
At least he was at the top of the line.
The one thing for you, though, that was even harder was you may sit there for 10 minutes, and then it's like, oh shit, I got to go out here and take care of something. It's not like you had to go out there and play a shift. You had to go out there and like drop the biddies and fuck, so that's way harder than sitting there.
Well, I had to make that one shift really count.
Exactly.
Another one after that. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of pressure on that one shift.
So that's something I wouldn't want to have to do. I'd rather sit there than just have to go have a shift instead of sometimes what you would have to do. But anyway. But we'll see what happens, man.
Yep. It's a big day.
Big day.
All right, Nas, let's jump into our next episode with our good friend, Bill Clement. Presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It is easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KNUCKLES when you sign up. That's promo code KNUCKLES for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, PA only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Welcome back to another episode of Nasty Knuckles. I'm Riley Cote.
And I am Derek Settlemyre. And this week we are thrilled to have our good buddy with us. 2-time Stanley Cup champion. 2-time All-Star. I can't even name everyone he's worked for in broadcasting because it's literally every station, everything you can think of. He is the man, Mr. Bill Clement. How you doing, buddy?
I think you just called me a hooker, basically.
I would never do that.
Well, I mean, you cleaned it up a little bit. The truth was, I would work when I was working for anybody that wanted to hire me, as long as I could fit it into my schedule. So the list of television and radio networks that I've worked for is pretty, well, I'm old, so it's substantial. It's long.
Well,
It's impressive.
It's very impressive. It's very impressive.
Is there anyone you didn't work on? Because I feel like you've worked on every established network that ever existed.
ABC, NBC, CBS. CBS, I didn't do TV. I did some radio. TNT, Sports Channel America, NBC Sports, Versus. And the first year that NBC got the rights to the NHL, most of the games were broadcast on OLN.
Yeah.
On the Outdoor Life Network.
That's right.
And we were all like, I was a rookie as a studio host, and Neil Smith, the former GM of the New York Rangers, and Jonesy and Keith Jones. Jonesy was a rookie too. So our first show, I go to close it up at the end, and I was all over the freaking map. I didn't even know what I was saying. Jonesy did kind of a closing comment that made no sense at all. Like, and Neil had blabbered something or other, and we finally, faded to black, and it was horrible. And I started to smile. I looked at Jonesy and I said, "Well, that went pretty well." And Jonesy said, "Oh, that was horrible." And Neil Smith said, "Gee, guys, I thought we did pretty well."
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus!
Oh man, could have been that bad.
Well, I'm, my career could have ended a couple of times. When I'd only been at it for about 2 years, in 1987, I'd only been at it for a year, I guess, year and a half, as an analyst, game analyst, right, up in the booth with calling games. So I get a chance. The U.S. Olympic team was playing this Russian select team 3 times before the Olympics that were coming up in '88 in Calgary. So I was doing color, and I got to work with Al Michaels. Oh. And Mike Eruzione, who was the hero in 1980, he was going to be our host down in the locker room doing interviews between periods and stuff like that. So the night before the first game, our producer comes to me and says, "Eruzione's not coming. He's got a better gig. He's got a better offer," something like that. He said, "Can you run down between periods and do the interviews?" And I was way too stupid to say no. So I said, "Yeah, sure. I can handle that." I'd never done a live interview in my life, interviewing somebody else. It's easy when somebody is asking you the questions.
Right.
So I'm going over the questions, and I had 2 guys to interview. Tony Granato was one of them. I forget who the other one was in the second intermission. So I go down there, run down. Al Michaels told me before the game, he said, "I haven't done a game since 1980. So he said, "Jump in all you want, right? I need help. So come on in, like I'll let you in anytime you open your mouth." So the first period, I'm so mentally rehearsing how I'm going to get into the interview, get out of the interview. I didn't help Al even this much. And I'm saying to myself, this is not good. So it gets worse. So I run down, I'm sitting there, here comes Tony Granato. And I was going to start the interview with, and I'm here with Tony Granato. "Tony, what's a kid from Downers Grove, Illinois doing in the U.S. Olympic program? Doesn't seem like it's a hotbed of hockey." So here with Tony Granato, and Tony, tell us, what's a boy from, and I just blanked. And I said, "Well, don't let us die here on television, Tony. Where are you from?"
That's awesome.
Well, but guess what? Inside now I'm starting to die.
Yeah.
I finished the interview. Now I'm starting to sweat. And when I sweat, I really sweat. So we go to a commercial break, we come back, and now I got to call the replays, the highlights of the first period. I didn't know the difference between having 1 tape machine and 2 tape machines. When you have 2 tape machines, you look at the first replay, the second machine, the B machine, is queued up for the second replay. While the second replay is going on, machine A queues up for the third one, right? And it just goes bang, 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 bang. Those are our highlights from the first period. So I do the first highlight, And our producer, Bruce Connell, passed away, bless his soul. He was a tremendous fellow. He died way too young, just a couple of years ago. He starts yelling in my ear, my IFB, look up, look up. Looking up, like I was looking into the face of a giant serpent, T-Rex. And I thought, I didn't know. And he says, okay, second highlight. And I'm able to look down. And then he starts yelling at me, look up, look up. They had one tape machine. So they needed time to queue up to the next replay. And I needed to fill in between. And, you know, my middle name wasn't Phil. Yeah. So by the time I get through the second replay, there's a third one coming, and he's yelling, "Look up!" So I look up, and I'm talking about that. The Olympics are coming in a few. I didn't even know what I was saying. Sweat is dripping off my nose, and Bruce has my key pressed down, and he doesn't know his. He's trying to speak to the stage manager, the girl that was our stage manager, and he had my key pressed down at the same time. So he's screaming at her. She said, get a towel and wipe him off. He looks fucking terrible. Jeez. And I'm live on TV with my producer yelling that I looked that bad. I don't know how I did the second period. Poor Al Michaels. I called my wife. There were no cell phones like I didn't have one in 1987. Right. I called my wife and I said, I think my broadcast career has ended tonight. I don't think anybody's going to hire me after this. So
it's amazing. Start. It's like a scene out of Anchorman.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm Ron Burgundy. Right.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh,
beautiful start to your career.
I was gonna say, and then you looked way more comfortable in the overtime game with Washington and the Islanders, though. And I'll never forget, I was up here in Philly visiting my dad, and you were covering that game with Mike Emmerich, and I forget how many did it go? 4 overtimes? Was it 4 or 5?
4.
And Riles, you may be too young,
just like
to remember, but anyway. Because I was a teenager, and they come back and Billy's got his tie around his head. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was one of the
my dress shirt. I'm actually a lot better when I start taking off clothes.
You don't sweat as much, probably.
It was one of the greatest things I ever saw, man.
We didn't have any, we got so much shit for that from certain. The president of ESPN sent us a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. The vice president of programming killed us in USA Today the next day. Our own people.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we never wanted to make it. What people don't understand is Doc and I were getting punchy. We knew that we were witnessing kind of the Woodstock of hockey for its time, because it was the longest modern day game. And we had no programming for between periods. We had no canned features. We couldn't get any players for interviews. Right. Our studio at ESPN was a one-man band. I think it was Tom Mees back there. So Doc and I, we wanted to have some fun with it, and we never wanted to take away from the product. And that's something that I always stress to young broadcasters. You are not the show. Okay. Remember, you're the conduit that connects what's happening on the ice, on the ball field, wherever. You connect the people to that. So we limited the fun that we had between periods when there was nothing going on the ice. And I learned then, and I've told, I get sent tapes and look at stuff, footage of broadcasters saying, can you help me? And I remember when I was a full-time actor and I started taking acting classes, and I had a class in New York, and I did this scene where I was supposed to be on the phone. And this acting coach named Joan C, S-E-E. I'll never forget that bitch, because she really embarrassed me. But what happened was I did this scene, and she said, well, you're a real slice of white bread, aren't you? I said, what do you mean? She said, there's nothing there. She said, there's no rye, there's no pumpernickel, there's no whole wheat. You're just white bread. You showed me nothing there. And I thought, I never forgot that. And I use that expression very often to young broadcasters. I say, look, at some point, you have to step out on the ledge, or you have to become something more than a slice of white bread.
Right.
And that's what Doc and I did. It put us on the map to this day. unintentionally, but to this day, people still say, if somebody recognizes me, when are you going to tie your tie around your head?
Yeah.
Right.
And Doc led me to all kinds of impressions. I was doing Boom Boom Jeffrey on and a Pakistani soothsayer, and just it was craziness. It was crazy.
You ever send that
clip
to her? You ever send that clip to her? Say, here's some pumpernickel.
Nope. Here, pump this nickel, bitch. No, as a matter of fact, I learned from it. Those are things that happen, that are maybe embarrassing, but you need to hear them.
Right.
And I did pretty darn well. I mean, I was a full-time actor for 5 years. We went to New York from Atlanta. My wife and I, we met. We weren't married at the time. I lost everything, my home, my marriage, all of my money in a restaurant franchising venture 2.5 years after I retired from my 11 years, in the show. And we moved to New York, and I did a lot of work on human development. I read a lot of human development stuff, like Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
And a guy that lost more money than anybody, his guy's name's John Quattrochi. He goes by John Q. Really successful guy today, but he lost more money than any of my investors. And trust me when I tell you, phone calls to people that that trusted you and that believed in you, to tell them that it's all gone. Those are really hard calls to make. John Q lost more money than anybody in my restaurant, and he was more concerned with my emotional state than he was his money. And he came and presented me with a copy of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I highlighted it, then I went back again and I redlined some of the highlighted areas. So I had a 15-minute read, I had a 90-minute read. And one of the things it talked about was what the Greeks and the Spaniards used to do when they send their soldiers ashore, right, to conquer a country or an area. They burn their ships. They would actually burn their ships. Well, those soldiers that went ashore really had one option, right? Win or die.
Yeah.
And I knew the importance of that. There were actors in Atlanta that used to go and spend 3 weeks in New York or 3 months in New York, and they'd come back and say, I didn't like it, or it didn't work out. They gave themselves an avenue of retreat. We didn't. And we became pretty darn successful while we were in New York. And the phone rang one day, and it was ESPN asking me to audition if I wanted to. And guys, it's hard auditioning for your lunch and your rent every week.
Yeah.
And I said to ESPN, I said, what does the audition consist of? And they said, a live game on the air. Wow. And I went, oh my God. But I'm a pain in the butt to a lot of people because I'm a preparer, right? I really want to prepare. So I said to ESPN, I said, what do you want me to be? What are you looking for in your analyst? Who do you want me to be? What do you want me to do? And they said, we want you to educate the uneducated fans without offending the educated. Okay. So there were all kinds of ways to do that, like using the term standing up at the blue line. And then just mentioning, it's a lot more than just staying on your feet, staying vertical. It's making sure you don't back up into your end too soon on the blue line. So when the coach is screaming, stand up, the players know what he's talking about. So something like that. I educated the uneducated. Without pissing off the hardcore fan. And I won the job. There were 5 guys that auditioned, and my game was in Chicago Stadium. Good old Chicago Stadium. Yeah. And Minnesota North Stars in Chicago. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Rouse, you were going to ask him something about the acting, I think.
Yeah, well, now you brought it up. I saw that you were in the drama series All My Children. I was curious on how you landed up obviously getting that role. And I didn't realize the progression of you getting into acting before you get into broadcasting. Seems
Well, when I lost everything, I thought, okay, what now? Right? What do I do? And I had looked for the right restaurant location for a year. And I realized at one point I hadn't had a paycheck in over a year. So I sat there one day and I said, what could I do that I think I have an aptitude for that could be financially rewarding, that might not be that time consuming? And I played with a guy in Atlanta named Kurt Bennett. He had 4 other brothers that all played pro, 3 other ones in the NHL, Harvey Bennett, Kurt Bennett, Billy Bennett. And Kurt's wife was a performer. And I found out about 10 years ago, I don't know if she still is, but I was reading an article in USA Today, maybe it was 15 years ago, that Susan Bennett was the voice of Siri.
No way.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went to Susan. I said, Susan, can you get me in to see some agents in Atlanta? Because Atlanta and Chicago are the next largest markets for acting and for opportunities. After New York and Los Angeles, it goes Atlanta and Chicago. And she said, sure. So I went and saw two agents. They said, you need a headshot. Okay, I'll get a headshot, make up a fake resume or something like that. And they sent me out on some auditions, and I actually landed a couple of commercial jobs before my restaurant even opened. So one of them was a national commercial for Hardee's hamburgers. And I kept getting these checks every month. And I thought, this isn't half bad.
Yeah.
When the restaurant closed, I really didn't have much of an option. I said, this is the only thing I've done, the acting thing, the commercials. I guess I better try as hard as I can. So I enrolled in the Alliance Theater School in Atlanta and took every class I could get my hands on. So by the time I got to New York, I was kind of ready to be there, in spite of what Joan C. had to say to me about
white bread.
And I had a one-off on all my children. It looks great on the resume. I had a one-day gig where I was wore a white cruise ship captain outfit. I had my shirt like Love Boat.
Yeah, the Love Boat. Oh,
yeah. My wife Sissy actually was on far more often than I was. She was Erica Kane's nurse every time Erica went to the hospital. And fortunately for our bank accounts, Erica was a hypochondriac that was in the hospital often.
Yeah.
My wife, bless her heart, had a whole bunch of work for us. So
man,
it's all good. Yeah, but some of the auditions are crazy. The commercial that I got that I made the most money on, I think I made about 157 grand on one commercial. And it was during the playoffs, and I was working for ESPN, and I auditioned for Deep Woods Off, right, for the insect repellent. And what happens in a major market audition is they have 60, 70, 80, I don't know, maybe 100 people audition for it. Then they have the first callback where they narrow it down to maybe 15. Then they have a second callback where it's their top 3 or 4 choices and the director's there. Well, I was doing the Rangers Flyers series on ESPN, and the first callback, they said they want you back for a callback. And I went, great, I can't make it. I'm going to be in Philadelphia all day. The callback was in New York. A week later, guess what? Third callback. They want you to come to the third callback. I said, I can't make that one either. There's no way. And there was no way I was going to get that job. So I get a call like a week later. You got the job. Wow. The first thing I thought was those guys must have been brutal. All the other guys. But what happened? So and here's the deal. We were shooting in the Florida Everglades in the middle of the night after dark on a Wednesday night. I had a Tuesday night game in Philly and a Thursday night game in New York. And they wanted me to fly down to Florida in between. So our producer was Bruce Connell. I said, Brucey, what do you think? He said, if you have a chance to do this, go for it. Even if you show up at 5 o'clock the day of the game, just off the plane, we'll cover you. You're smart enough. You're good enough. Go and do it. So I get down to Florida, and I met in the restaurant. There was the director, the producer, the Johnson & Johnson lady, and the advertising agency lady. And I went in, and I started to feel like one of those 24-hour flus. Like, oh my God, I felt horrible. I said, would it be okay if I got a couple hours sleep? And this is in the afternoon, and then we'll talk. And they said, yeah, we'll come up to your room. Call me. So I called the director, and they come into my room, 2 men, 2 women, and it's just a little hotel room. And one sits on bed, they're sitting in a chair, and there's this tenseness. Right? I know, like something's wrong here. So they said, the director said, are you off book? Meaning, have you memorized your lines? And I had to do a full 30 seconds. There were no pickup points. And I had supposed to have just a pair of shorts on. I'm in a tent with 10,000 mosquitoes and biting flies. This steady cam comes tracking down this path. 2 little pieces of thread open up the cheesecloth, and there I am inside with just a pair of shorts on. So he said, are you off book? He said, well, go ahead and run through it. I said, we filled this tent with 10,000 hungry mosquitoes and biting flies, but they're not biting me. I'm using Deep Woods Off, repels extra tough mosquitoes and biting flies. So I said, okay, we'll do one that's stronger. It's more severe. I said, okay. Filled this tent with 10,000 hungry mosquitoes and biting flies, but they're not biting me. I'm using Deep Woods Off. And then said, can you lighten it up? And I said, sure. I said, we filled this tent with 10,000 hungry mosquitoes and biting flies, but they're not biting me. I'm using Deep Woods Off. It repels extra tough mosquitoes and biting flies. And everybody in the room went, oh. And then they told me what this was all about. Without the callbacks, the director didn't know if I could take direction, right? If he could move me into one direction or the other. The two women, the Johnson & Johnson lady and the advertising agency lady wanted me. The producer and director, the two men, didn't want me because they didn't know if I'd be able to deliver what they wanted. We all lived happily ever after.
Oh, man.
And I did a remake of it in 2003, I think. That was in 87 also. But over the years, I think about 153 to 157,000 bucks. So
that's amazing.
Call Deep Woods Off again. See if they need anything or whatever.
Well, they did a remake when I was 53 or 54. I was only 36 then, but they did a remake. Yeah. And at some point I'm praying they don't want me to take my shirt off in the tent again. Because believe me, it wasn't as pretty at 53 as it was at 36.
You got the right voice for it, for sure. All three of those options seem to have triggered it. I don't know. They're
you know what's funny? Here's the deal. First of all, Deep Woods Off, it burnt the hell out of my skin. It was the first time, and it smelled awful, and they put so much of it on me. The second time, the remake, it smelled better, and I didn't get bit once. But the year one, right? In my hotel room, they said, we're gonna have to ask you to sign an affidavit after the shoot saying you didn't get bit by anything. I said, do you have that with you? They said, yeah. I said, give it to me now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I signed it, and I got bit twice.
Oh, man.
I got bit. My move was standing up on a cot. I had a pair of boots, shorts on, and I rubbed the repellent off the back of one of my calf muscles. And one of the flies, the mosquitoes just disappear. The biting flies, like cow flies, they're house flies that bite, right? And then I got bit there and right here. And it was during one of the takes, and they did the close-up of me. They said, cut. Come on. No good. Way. We can't use that one. I got bit twice.
That's incredible. Man. You're talking about these ads that you did. I was reading that you, I think you did one for Bud Light, and you were known for your calm, consistent passing game. And then there's this Clement, Hands of Cement. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. They were the most fun. And the Bud Light people treated us like gold. They ran on ESPN on National Hockey Nights. And Brian Engblom was in them, Barry Melrose, nice. Phil Esposito. And it was the premise was this fictitious town in northern Minnesota called Hockey Falls. And these guys were in their 30s, and they all had mullets, and each one of them had a favorite team, and that's all they ever wore. One wore a Boston jersey, one had a Devils jersey, one had a Rangers jersey, and they really believed that they were going to make it to the NHL, right? They were flunkies. They didn't even have jobs. They were just so on this. We flew to LA to shoot a bunch of the commercials. And I had looked at the scripts, and the mullet heads are choosing sides for street hockey. And like, what about Melrose? He still thinks he's coaching. What about Esposito? And at one point, in the script, Espo goes, guys, while we're still young.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's funny because Espo was in his 70s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then it said, the script read, what about Clement? No, he can't pass. He doesn't know. No, he can't play defense or something that alluded to me not being a good defensive player. I said to the director, I said, that's probably the only thing that I was any good at was defending and things like that. I said, do we have to use that line? And he said, well, what do you got? I said, well, I don't know. Clement rhymes with cement. And you could just say, what about Clement? Oh, he's got hands of cement. But the four actors, they took it a step further. When one of them said, "What about Clement?" And they all four of them just ad-libbed, Clement hands of cement.
Oh man,
beautiful.
And it made it. And to this day, that's awesome. The one commercial that people remember. Yeah. And the only reason was I said, well, you know what? That's the only thing I could do is check and be a good defensive player. So they changed the script, and the actors took it to another level. They're all good guys too. We had a blast doing those commercials. One of them was like, "Come on, guys, we're all drinking Bud Light in our room right before the game," and Espo was saying, "Way to go, guys! This is great." You know, just everybody's high-fiving and everything, and the scene looks like we just won a game, right? All of a sudden, ref opens the door. "Guys, game starts in 5 minutes."
That's great.
Yeah, you can still find them on YouTube if anybody sees this and wants to see them. They were all really good. So much fun to shoot.
We're gonna track those down for sure.
We're definitely trying. I've been writing it all down, but I've seen. I remember some of this though for sure.
Brian Engblom was the only guy that had a kind of a mullet himself.
He had his own. He had a real one, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I thought Barry Melrose would have had one for sure.
Bear was
not quite yet.
Not as much. He did at one time.
Yeah.
Not then.
And then the voice of EA Sports NHL hockey for I think 7 years or so. I mean, I remember growing up playing that game and not knowing who you were at the time, but connecting the dots after the fact. That must have been pretty cool gig.
Yeah, you really know you've made it when 9 and 10-year-old kids come up to you and say, "I know who you are."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? You're
a legend.
A parent will come up and say, "I knew that was you right away because your voice is in our living room every day."
Yeah, right.
Because of the game.
You could be ordering a coffee at Wawa, and
right.
They hear you talking like, "Oh,
Bill, is that you?"
Yeah, is that Bill?
Yeah, EA Sports.
Yeah,
it's in the game.
It's in the game.
There were so really, it's difficult work creating. I think people think that you just read. You sit down and read what they give you. It doesn't work that way. Not the way EA Sports did it. And they said, you probably just were watching a game that they were replaying for you. When Gary Thorne and I would sit down across from one another with our mics that looked just like your mics, where there'd be a stack of paper that thick. And they wanted 5 variations of everything ad-libbed. So, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of scenarios. So let's say scenario 1, shot from the left point, right, low to the glove side, degree of difficulty for the goaltender, low degree of difficulty. Gary said, "He took that shot. Oh, that doesn't seem like it had much of a chance to go in." "You're right, Gary. He's got to get more on it, maybe even get it higher in the net." Next. Right, took that shot. I'm not sure he was going for low to the glove side, but that's where it ended up. Yeah, and it looked like there was a lot of room on the other side. 5 versions.
Wow.
Then shot from the point, degree of difficulty for the goalie, medium, glove height, and then high, and then blocker side, low, stick side middle, blocker side up, then 5-hole. 5.
Wow.
They wanted 5 variations. And then they'd move the dial that much and say, "Okay, now 5 of these, 5 of these, 5 of these."
Oh my God.
They determined over the years, and Gary and I could vouch for this, that the breaking point for your brain is 6 hours. We do 3-4 hours, have lunch, and then after going 2 more hours of trying to create and say something a different way, like reinvent your own vocabulary and the sentence structure and everything, Gary would start and say, we'd get the giggles, right? And then we couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, "Okay, let's just try and do a couple more, guys."
Yeah.
And by the time 6 hours rolled around, we were just like jello.
Yeah, enough, right?
Mentally.
Oh God. It was, but because it was so demanding, it was really rewarding.
Right.
Nothing that's really that easy feels all that great. It's not some challenge. Guess anybody could do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So like how many days would you be there to do that? Like for 3 days?
Usually they'd refresh every year. If there was a new team that came in, Gary would do all of the names. 3 days. And we recorded in Vancouver for a few years. I think we were together 7, 8, or 9 years. And then outside of San Francisco, and then down in Florida, close to where Gary lived, outside of Sarasota. And away we went, So it was pretty cool. And what always amazed Gary and me, because we didn't know how this shit worked. Like, how does whatever's happening on the ice, the software calls up the appropriate commentary. Right?
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of bytes and one-liners and things like that, both for Gary and me. And the software just, why didn't we think of that? Gary?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I still, I'm not sophisticated enough technologically or in the computer world, but they're pretty cool people.
Yeah.
EA Sports. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Impressive.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Bill, where along the lines did you realize your voice was a big part of your performance? Like you talked about your acting. I didn't realize you were an actor until I did some homework yesterday, on your career. But like when I think of Bill Clement, I think of, the voice, this voice, and you're obviously in the speaker world. Like when did you make those connections? Was when you did your acting? Or was it before that?
I don't really remember. First of all, my voice is what mom and dad and the big guy upstairs gave me.
Yeah.
It's untrained. I never took a voice. I never took specifically a voice class, but there were many times when I would be driving to an audition in Atlanta when I first started, trying to get the Canadian out of my mouth. Yeah. So I would be driving along and I'd be going out, house, now, around. And I had to learn how to speak neutral American. So there was an accent thing that I had to kind of get rid of. But, enough people, I guess, just saying, gosh, you got a nice voice. You got a great voice. Or I never tried to do anything specific because of my voice. It was just part of the package and the parcel when anybody else wanted. Remember, I'm the hooker that worked for 34. So whatever they wanted from me, I would go and do. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I really enjoyed, I wrote a book called Everyday Leadership, Crossing Gorges on Tightropes to Success. And I'm in a business suit on a tightrope with a giant long hockey stick as my balancing bar. I'm crossing Grand Canyon. And I decided to turn it into an audiobook. And it was really interesting doing that. And I'm really glad I did. It didn't sell worth a damn once I even turned it into an audiobook, but it was certainly enjoyable to do and then kind of enjoyable to listen back to and realize what I might be able to, if I ever chose to do with my voice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, kids come up to you because they recognize, your voice is very recognizable, like obviously.
See, I don't, when people say that, I don't know that.
Right.
And like almost everybody else, I don't like my own voice.
Right.
I always tell people I don't really rewatch us because I can't stand listening to myself. But I sound I've still got the redneck in me too, though. A lot of people you're
still trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, I can't.
Well, just for the record, since I'm guest number 33, I can't stand your voice either, Nasty.
I don't blame you.
Only kidding, brother. You know that.
I know.
You got to have a sense of humor.
That's right.
I remember when I left, when I started playing hockey on a bigger level, I left home when I was 15. I was the youngest player in the Quebec League. And then I spent 3 years in the Ontario League as I was an original Ottawa 67 in 1967. And as you get more advanced and older, you better have thicker skin, right? Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, you get chewed up.
You're in the American League, Riles, you played in the minors too. There's nothing sacred, man. It's all in play.
We were actually talking about that, Bill. We were going to ask you, it's funny, so guys still play pranks on one another. Yeah. But I remember my dad telling me stories about guys cutting guys' suits, their boots.
Oh yeah.
What was one of your favorites you saw? Because you can't touch people's clothes anymore. The most we can do is I got Michael Raffle a few years ago, really good. He had a new suit and we've talked about this before. I've got a video of it. It's hilarious. But his phone, I put his phone in his pocket, turned his pants inside out, and I stitched my sewing machine across so he could put his hand in his pocket, but he could not get to his phone. And everyone in the change room knew it. So we're all watching him and we're videoing him, and he's just having a time. He's looking, and he turns and he hears us kind of laughing. And he goes, I was like, what the fuck is going on, man? He goes, is there a secret pocket in my pants? But I had sewn it. He couldn't figure it out for the life of him. But anyway, we were going to ask you, like, what you guys used to do, like, so, your pranks.
Yeah. I mean, when I got traded to Washington, we had a guy named Peter Skamura. He was from Buffalo, and he was the Capitals' first draft choice that year. It was the second year in the league, and we were awful. And Peter dressed like a freaking slob. I mean, just a sports jacket that looked like he just rolled it up in a ball and sat on it for 3 years before he put it on. And he'd wear it to practice. He'd wear these moccasins that were just falling apart. And he'd wear them every day. And we'd all say, Peter, get some new fucking shoes. Yeah. That is not right to be dressed like that as a professional athlete and a major league athlete. You can't do that. Finally, one day we said, Peter, if you don't get new shoes, we're going to cut them. And so I slipped off the ice of practice and I cut them from toe to heel in 2 pieces. So we had 4 half pieces of moccasins. So he just left them bare feet after practice. When I was in Atlanta one time, I had a brand new Dior tie and a brand new sports jacket, and I busted them out for a trip to New York. Right, here we go. Oh yeah. And we're flying commercial. So we're all hung over like crazy. When it was time we have like a 7:30 flight out of LaGuardia, going to Atlanta the next morning. And I'm sitting with all the guys in a waiting area, in the boarding area, waiting lounge. And I kind of nod off. And when I wake up, empty seats. Empty seats. Oh shit. So the first thing I did, which is the first natural thing for hockey guys, is to go like this to see what's on top of your head, right? Whether it's shaving cream or whatever. And so I hate to give anybody the payoff, right, of overreacting. So I just did that. Okay, it's not there. And I just took my hand and ran it down my tie. And when I got to here, my tie ended. They'd cut it off, right? So I just undid it and threw it on the seat beside me, then pretended I was going back to sleep. Like, that's how underreactive I wanted to be. Yeah. Trust me, I wasn't going back to sleep. So I got on the plane and I got sitting beside a guy named Don Lawrence. If he hadn't really seriously busted up his leg his last year junior, he would have been a hell of an NHLer. So he's a rookie, and I'm sitting there on the plane beside him. He's got a center seat, of course, because he's a rookie. I said, so let me ask you something. If I said that Willie Plett was the guy that cut off my tie, would I be right? And he went, I said, if I said that Bobby Lalonde had cut off my tie, would I be wrong? And he went, I wouldn't be wrong. So that's all he had to do. I didn't get him to tell me the name.
Right.
So I knew Bobby Lalonde was 5'5", he was the cockiest little bastard, because I think he had to be. He was only 5'5". Right. He was a hell of a player. He was so cocky. Like, there was a player that played back in the 20s and 30s named Newsy Lalonde. So his name was Bobby Lalonde, but the guys nicknamed him Newsy because it was an old time name. That wasn't good enough for him. He wanted everybody to call him the Daily, the Daily News.
Come on.
So hey, he wants the Daily. Hey, the Daily here, the Daily. So
he was cocky.
Yeah. So now I got him in my sights. So we all lived up north of Atlanta, but every once in a while we practiced down at the Omni in Atlanta, and it's downtown. There are no service stations or anything around. So I get there early and I'm hiding in the bushes. Here comes Bobby Lalonde in his yellow Ford LTD. And he went into practice, and I'd stopped at the hardware store and got one of those little keys that can take valves out of tires.
Oh, okay.
So he went in, took a valve out of his left front tire, threw it as far as I could into the bush, went to the rear tire, same side, took out the valve. Now he's down 2 valves, not one. He came out and his car was tipped over on the side like that. And the next day of practice, I just waited till he came out. Next day of practice, he comes in. Okay, we're even, huh? We call it even. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And he said, it took me 4 fucking hours to get my car out of there because there are no gas stations downtown Atlanta. So he spent half a day, trying to mess with him. So I got him back.
That's awesome.
Good. That's really good.
Yeah, the pranks aren't quite as good as they used to be. From what my old man, the stories, and like you say, they're still, some of them are good, but they're way more sensitive these days.
Oh yeah.
Well,
culture's
they are, and
changing.
guys used to destroy hotel rooms for a prank.
Right.
Yeah.
That reminds me, Atlanta, my dad wanted me, Sudsy wanted me to ask you about Boom Boom Jeffrey, your coach.
Yeah.
And he said there was a story about where he told you guys he wouldn't trade anyone for ore. And then something about him, I can't remember exactly, but he said you would know.
Yeah. It was in Boston. And that year, the Bruins farm team in the American League was the Boston Braves. They played out of Boston Garden, just like the Bruins did.
Wow.
And Boom Boom would always try to fire the guys up. And, he'd come in. I do this on stage. I used to when I was still speaking, and I talked about Boom Boom. He'd say, hey, he'd come into the room and say, hey, I love you, guy.
Love you, guy.
We all wonder, does he love me individually?
Yeah.
Or is he talking to all of us?
Yeah, right.
Because I grew up in Quebec, and French people have trouble with English plurals because they don't pronounce S's at the end of words in French.
That's right.
Most times. So, hey, I love you, guy, because you're the clan of flame. Atlanta to Boom Boom was Clana. K-L-A-N-N-A. Clana. He says, hey, we got 18 guy, 2 shifts each, 34 shift. Come on, let's go. He wasn't, I made some things up about him because he wasn't very good at math, but in practice he'd yell over, hey, you 3 guy, half of you come over here.
Come on.
So in Boston, the Bruins had a couple of injuries, but Orr, Esposito, Hodge, Cashman, McKenzie, Busick, they're all there. They had a couple of guys that were way down the roster that were injured, and Boom Boom comes in and he's trying to sell the guys on the idea that the Bruins are just decimated with injuries, right? We know they're 95% healthy. All the big names are healthy. So he comes in, hey, I love you, guy, because you're in a clan of flame. Hey, who they got those guy over there? That's not the Boston Bruin. That's the Boston Brave. What? Hey, I want to guarantee you one thing. I would not trade any one of you guy for any one of those guy over there. Or maybe 1 or 2 guy.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
Were you guys just laugh when he left the room? Or you guys just like looking at each other like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Well delivered.
He was a character, man. Hey, the second guy to score 50 goals in the NHL, and he invented the slap shot.
Really?
Boom Boom Jeffrey invented the slap shot. Nobody ever raised their stick up and slapped the puck.
Huh.
That's how he got his nickname. It would go boom, boom when it would hit the boards in Montreal Forum, and some very creative person nicknamed him Boom Boom.
Very creative.
Boom Boom. Yeah.
Wow, what year would that have
awesome.
been? No slap shots before that?
No, that was in the 50s.
50s.
Yeah, there were no slap. You watch any of the video, you have to get up to around 19. Well, by the time Chicago came around, the curve stick was basically invented by accident by Stan Mikita. He broke his blade in half and it got stuck, on an angle. But sometimes when the wooden sticks would break, they'd kind of hold in one spot.
Yeah.
Right.
And he started taking a few shots with it and he could really fling it, and he thought, look at this. And then Bobby Hull kind of got a hold of it. And when the curves were unlimited, Bobby Hull scored so many goals from outside, and Dennis Hull, because the puck would start to flutter and drop. And it was so dangerous. Like Bobby and Dennis will admit to this day, they'd waste their first shot. None of the goalies wore masks. They'd come over the blue line and rip one right at his head.
Right at their head.
And the next time one of them would wind up, what's the goalie do?
Yeah.
Right? Lifts up.
Yeah.
They just shoot on the ice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Strategy.
Yeah. But Boom Boom is a part of history. He was an unbelievable player.
I did not know that. That's a good tidbit of information where the slap shot came from.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
But I did commercials for a group up in Alaska for a lot of years. God, they were so much fun, for a telecommunications company. My kids were in some of them. Hey, Dad. One of them, my son says to me, he was about 8 years old at the time. Hey, Dad, who invented the hockey stick? I said, well, I don't know, son, but what's important is I perfected its use. That's what's important. Then he said, hey, Dad, are you in the Hall of Fame? I've been there. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have been in the Hall of Fame. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great.
No chance. No chance for the Hall.
Oh, man. Well, wanted to ask you a couple questions about winning 2 Stanley Cups, though. I mean,
Yeah.
had to be obviously amazing. In Philadelphia, I was saying to Riley before, like, now it's so, fans aren't jumping on the ice and all that, and seeing those pictures, you guys, and people all over you. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, are you happy? You're so excited you don't really care, or is it like, what the fuck? Like, get off of me! People are grabbing you.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah,
The last part.
yeah, that's right. I mean, oh God, I couldn't
If you
even
look hard
imagine.
enough, you can see both Schultze, Dave Schultz and I were, people come up and grab you. We did it. And I don't know, what's this we shit? I didn't see you on the bus or the plane or in the locker room. Man. And I know that they all just wanted to feel that they were a part of it. But
Yeah,
most of the guys will tell you that, and you probably had some on the show, that we kind of felt robbed of that very special moment
right.
on the ice, with all of our
Yeah.
fans. And that's to me why, but to shut out the Boston Bruins with Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito,
Right.
we had a hell of a team. We had to have a hell of a team.
Yeah.
It's always bothered me that our team that never got the respect that it deserved. And that's why I'm glad we won our second cup, because everybody just said, oh, they just go and beat people up and that's how they win.
Right.
Really, maybe a little more to it than that.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
all had to pull on the rope at the same time. But I don't know if any of the other guys would admit this, but if we didn't win Game 6, I don't think we win the Stanley Cup.
Really?
We had to go back to Boston for a Game 7.
Right.
Well, see, the problem that we had in that series was they had home ice advantage in a 7-game series. The problem was we hadn't won in 7 years in Boston.
That's right.
31 consecutive games we had played in Boston. I wasn't there for all of them, dating back to the late 60s. They hadn't won.
Incredible.
Yeah. And we lost Game 1 with 22 seconds to go. And in Game 2, we tied it up with 50 seconds to go and won it in overtime. So we got our one win,
Right.
but we didn't want to have to win another one
Yeah.
No.
in Boston. So to shut Boston out 1-0, and Riles, you know this, and Nasty, you know this too. When you're standing on a bench, Nasty, as you did for so many years, and Nasty, if you have a 1-goal lead against a really good team, the last 5 minutes of a third period is like 5 years.
Oh my God.
Years.
Yes.
If you're behind, the last 5 minutes seems like it's 5 seconds.
It's amazing, isn't it?
The perception of time is wacky. So we're nursing a 1-0 lead, and the clock is not moving. And come on.
Yeah.
Finally, it's going to happen, and that's when the whole surrealistic, is this shit real?
Yeah.
You start asking yourself, is this really happening? And there was a couple of minutes span there where I wasn't sure whether I was dreaming it or whether I was living it.
Right.
And when we finally realized what it was, when people say, what was it like? I said, well, picture you in a walk of life. If you were a lawyer, a doctor, or a bricklayer, or whatever, and they had a competition to see who the best in the world was. And you get right down to the end after being so tired, so injured, worked so hard, having so many emotional ups and downs, all of those things, and finally being called the best in the world.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe what it would feel like for you. So, and you know what, guys, it's one of the reasons why the second time was so wonderful to have won it to win on the road.
Yeah.
Because we had the cup to ourselves. It came back on the plane with us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And we were in the locker room with just a few extras, not a lot of different guys. It was really funny when we won our first cup. I was married to my first wife. And there was something wrong about the room, was just getting loaded with people, and I kept my jersey on, and there were guys that had everything stolen. There were people that were taking stuff out of the room. But I thought, this isn't right. Our wives have been through all of this with us too. So I didn't take my skates off or anything. I clop in the spectrum down to where the wives' room was, I think it was past the visiting locker room or between them. And I said to my wife, come on, you're going to be part of that. And then all the other girls' wives started following. So it was the right thing to do, to bring them down to the room,
Yeah, of course. So,
yeah. I think that bitch stole my jersey. No,
it was the wives that are ripping the stuff up.
No, she deserved it. Listen, you guys know what it's like. It's hard to bring the game home with you.
Right.
And what a lot of people don't understand too, that it's important for the wives to have harmony.
Right.
Right. There are a lot of players, the saying, he didn't get traded, his wife got traded.
Yeah.
If they're troublemakers, or there's somebody that's just not mixing right and stirring up crap all the time.
Yeah, that happens too.
Way more.
People don't know that stuff happens.
Yeah, it happens more than you think too.
It really
the ego, the pissing contest between the wives. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
it's a bad thing. But
I hit somebody. I took a shot that was not deflected. Somehow cleared the glass behind the goal by about 7 feet, and it went up and it hit somebody hard. It hit a woman in the chest really hard, and everybody knew which wife was which. So I said, and my wife said, everybody looked at me with this look like they hated me because it was you that shot the puck.
Oh my God.
Wow.
You have Makita's stick?
I don't know. I had a curve and it was kind of opened up. And it's just, it's like that golf shot. I have a lot of them just got away from you.
Yeah, I got a lot of those too.
Oh, whoa.
Riles, you're going to ask him about the leadership. Stuff.
Yeah, I was just curious. Obviously, when you win back-to-back Stanley Cups on any great team, there's a core group of leaders. Can you talk to just the overall leadership group, Clarkie and down? Because I believe you were you're probably a leader, but I mean, I think it looked like it was a collective group of everyone buying in and just an amazing chemistry there.
Yeah. If I was a leader, it was because I worked hard and I always tried to help other people. I think I was way too young. I got traded away from the Flyers when I was 24 and I was really immature. So I went to Washington. They made me captain, and boy, that was a tough job because we were a second-year expansion team, and there weren't many guys that really cared about anything. But in Philadelphia, the leadership group was right at the top with Bobby Clarke. I can't imagine that there was ever a young athlete that was as committed to winning, that had as great a hatred for losing, and that would do anything to win and would expect everybody else on the team to do the same thing. Nobody ever outworked Bobby Clarke, and he was a talented player too. I mean, and he didn't have a great shot, but he could put up numbers. I mean, in many ways, he reminded me of Wayne Gretzky, because Gretzky wasn't an overpowering skater, or he didn't have a great shot or any of those. Clarkie was a great passer, but he was tenacious, and he could dig, and he could do all of the right things. But the one thing that separated, I think, Bobby Clarke from any young person that is given the role of leader is he was not afraid to have the tough conversation with you, one-on-one. We need you. You're not giving us what you want, what we want. And it's funny, there's a a book that's sitting over my bookcase. You can't see it, called The Servant Leader. And a guy named James Austin wrote it. And in one paragraph, he wrote, the number one drawback in the business world and shortcoming of almost everybody in a management or leadership position is the inability, the fear, or the reluctance to have the tough conversation. In other words, it's easy to say, hey, Ralph, we're really glad we hired you. You're doing a great job. But so few are able to say, Ralph, you're not doing what we expected of you. Tell me why. Right. It's a hard conversation to have. I remember, Bobby Clarke came in when I was, I had a little tear in my medial collateral ligament. I did that in practice in the Ranger series, and I couldn't skate. I tried, and I was in the whirlpool for game 4 one night, and Clarke came in and talked to me and said, how's your knee? And our trainer told me just to come in and get in the jacuzzi to try to, I couldn't even bend it to 90 degrees. So I'm in the whirlpool, and Clarke came in and said, how's your knee? I said, it's not very good. And he said, can I tell you something? And I said, sure. He said, I don't think we can win the Stanley Cup without you. And I went, wow. What?
Powerful.
He said, look, Barry Ashby had lost his eye. Gary Dornhofer had a completely separated shoulder. The Hound had a bad knee, Bob Kelly. And I was out of the lineup. And he said, look, the guys that we've got called up from the minors can't do what you can do. Even if you could just kill penalties, we really need you. He said, I don't want you to do anything to hurt your knee, but just understand when you're ready to come back, we're really ready to have you back. Wow. And he left. And over the years, people have said, boy, you talk about peer pressure. I said, I didn't feel peer pressure. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't give me an ultimatum. What he did is made me feel that I was vital to the outcome.
Right.
Yeah. That's what anybody wants in life. You want to feel that you're important to the cause.
Yeah, of course.
So I got out of the whirlpool and dried myself off and hopped up on the table, and I said to our trainer, Frank Lewis, I said, shave my leg and spray me and tape it as best you can. I'm going to take the warm up. So I took the warm up, and I felt like I looked like a guy that had 2 neon signs on his body, one on my back that said one-legged man, because I was kind of hobbling around, and then one on my knee that was flashing on and off with arrows saying, hit him here, hit him here, here. And I finished the warm-up, and I went up, and as I'm coming into the dressing room, Frank, our trainer, standing at the door and said, well, can you play? And my brain immediately screamed, not a chance. And my lips went, yeah. So I played, and I just killed penalties, and we won. We went up to Boston for game 5, and we lost 5-1, and it could have been 9-1. I got our only goal. It was just a tap in. It was sitting on the goal line. It was shorthanded goal, and I just popped it in. And then we came back and won game 6, and I played a lot more in game 6. And I actually had a teammate tell me a few years ago, he said, I watched that tape again at game 6, and I think you were the best player on the ice in that game. And I've told audiences this story often, and I always let them know how well I played has nothing to do with this story. The story is about the fact that without being made to feel that I was vital to the outcome, I don't even think I would have been in the game.
That's right.
Right. But he made me feel so vital. I said, I got to do, no matter how painful it is, no matter what I feel like, I've got to try this. I got to get it going. But see, the first 3 games, the first part of the Boston series, I was in a cast. That's what they did for torn ligaments back then. Okay. And I had to be in the cast for another 2 to 3 weeks. But I got back after those 2 games in Boston. I went right to Abington Hospital, said to our doctor, get me out of the cast. I might never get a chance to play in the Stanley Cup Finals again. I want to see if I can do it. So we cut the cast off, and I hopped down off the table and almost fell flat on my face. It was like somebody put an electric charge up my heel and went right through my knee and up into my head. And I had to borrow crutches. So this is 3 days later, I played because I couldn't even walk that day. But it's not a testament to pain, thresholds, or anything like that. It's about what can be accomplished when somebody helps you feel that you're vital to the outcome. Yeah. And Bobby Clarke was that guy. That's and powerful. Believe me, we had a lot of guys that conform. Clarke had to have tough one-on-ones with guys. There were guys that were lazy. Well, Game 5, that game where we lost 5-1, where it could have been 8-1. Our most talented player was Ricky McLeish. Passed away way too young a couple years ago. But Ricky would go through the motions sometime. There was no sense of urgency. So we're in Boston with a chance to win the Stanley Cup, and Ricky is kind of, he's just sort of going, he's just sort of cruising around out there. And Clarkie was sitting beside me, and he was chewing, ice and everything. And she's, son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. So Ricky gets off the ice, sits on this side of me. Clarkie's on this side of me. And Clarkie waited for him to catch his breath. And he leaned over and he said, Ricky, I sure as fuck hope you're saving it for Thursday night, you cocksucker.
Oh, fuck.
And I'm sitting there going, whoa. Not another word was said. And Rick McLeish was our best player, not me, in game 6. He was everywhere. So Bobby knew how to have the tough conversation. He knew when to deliver it in a gentle way, which was the way to reach me, I think. He knew how to, jack somebody by the collar, and really hit him right here with what he wanted, the message that he wanted to give.
Yeah.
And it all worked. I've told many people that I can't imagine a leader in any other sport being better than Bobby Clarke. The one guy that I keep seeing over and over and over again, and it's hard to discount, is Tom Brady.
Right.
As a quarterback. I mean, he's not afraid to call people out. You see him on the sideline, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, that's Bobby Clarke was the heart. He was, I think everybody was like, I might have been this finger, somebody else might have been a thumb, somebody else might have been the lungs, but if you want to designate a body part, Bobby Clarke was the heartbeat of our team.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. There's not too many leaders that I've played with that are that impactful as leaders. Like, you have, they call out guys now and then, but every story I hear about Bobby Clarke was kind of exactly how you described them, was like the epitome of a leader. Like there's no one in the same league almost, but
no, there certainly wasn't. In my career, I never saw anybody else like him either. I didn't. I'll tell you who was great, though, for a young leader, and is great with our Flyers alumni organization, is Brad Marsh.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, he was what a solid human being that led by example. And he's I think of greatness in the game of life. That's what Brad is. And a lot of people think that we became really good friends playing for the Flyers. I never played one game with him as a Flyer. I played 4 years as a Flame.
Oh yeah,
with him, and we became pretty close then because he was such a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah,
he's done some amazing things with the alumni as well as the Warriors disabled veteran hockey team, and I'm in contact with Brad quite often, and he's you can see what you're talking about because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's a selfless human. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I always think that in broad strokes, it's possible very often to put people in one of two categories. Either they're a giver or a taker. Fortunately, most people are givers in varying degrees, but Brad is way up on the spectrum of givers, of somebody that will give to other people and to humanity just to help people.
Right.
Yeah.
So much to give back. The guys, all of the guys in the different sports that make a lot of money, I'm really happy for them, and I hope they make as much money as they can. But I really have a hard time with athletes that seem to have forgotten where they came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that. Too. It's a shame.
Brad didn't.
Yeah, there's a lot of entitlement these days, and I kind of actually wanted to build off what you were talking about, like that old school philosophy of grunt work and the hard conversations to this new school era that we're living in. Or not, maybe there's not those conversations, but I just feel like the culture has changed so much. Maybe some for the good, but I feel like to your last point there is just like it's almost like a lot of these younger guys there's a sense of entitlement. I don't feel like that ever was the case back in the day. Like when you go to training camp, it was like you earned every inch you got.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, you get drafted. Oh, well, I should make the team in training camp, and then, oh, I didn't get called up. And then you're going to hang your lip around the minor league, for a month or two. But talk about like what you see. Obviously it's almost polar opposites from Broad Street Bullies to the current day. But I mean, what's your perspective on the current game?
I still love the current game, but yeah, then times are changing, right? And that sense of entitlement has ruined more than one athlete's career.
Yep.
Because they don't pass the smell test. I mean, people. When I got called up from the minors, and I was really lucky. I got called up once and never got sent back down. So I didn't have to up, down, up, down, up, down. But I was sitting there after a game, and we had just called up, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I love him, and I always will. We were sitting there having drinks, and he was a scratch that game, and he just went on a rant. I'm sitting there with there 4 or 5 of us, right? I don't know, like I'm bullshit. I'm not coming up here to sit around and watch. I need to be in the lineup and want. And I looked at the expressions on the other guys' faces, and they were uncomfortable, right? And I remember saying to myself, if I'm ever in that position, I'm never going to complain to anybody. I'm just going to work harder.
Right.
Well, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because I started to get sat out. The next season, I played 39 and sat out 39. And Freddie Shiro wouldn't tell me before the game or even the morning of the game if I was playing or not. I'd find out after the warm-up. And that happened to me like 75 times in a season. And I never complained. And I know that I gained the respect of a lot of players because of that. So a player that has that sense of entitlement, if he is not helped in a transition through a correction, right, of behavior and attitude and all of those things, you'll never hear from them again. They're just going to drift away. And that's why it's so important. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning, look at the players they've developed, right? And it starts with counseling, starts with a very communicative coaching staff in the minors and explaining things to them, in very specific terms, helping them when they're down. They're young, right? It's hard to be 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I have a son that's 31. He went through a rough patch, in his early 20s. And I was talking to a psychologist one day, and she said, adolescence is at a later age than it was when you were younger. And I said, yeah, when I was younger, it was like 17, 18, 19. Now it's like 21, 22, 23. She said, try 31, 32, 33. Wow. So for these young athletes, that's why it's so important if they have one of those, any kind of correction that's required in their attitude, they need help. Yeah. And that's why an organization from top to bottom has to be so well thought out, so communicative. You have to be a parent, a disciplinarian. Sometimes you have to be a nurturer, right? Sometimes it's there's a lot to it today, because the pressures on the athletes are greater today.
Yep.
I really believe that because there's so much money at stake.
Yep. Yeah. There's so much competition, and everyone is, I say a high-end player now. There's so many moving parts there. And when I was coaching the Phantoms there, I think I spent most of my time not coaching hockey, but it was sitting there just being an ear to these guys. You know what I mean? It was like talking these guys off the edge, when so-and-so gets called up, they didn't get called up. Well, I'm better than him. I'm a higher pick than him, and all these different scenarios. But it's interesting, the psychology, and you just got to like bring them back down to earth a little bit and say, listen, you just got to be better. The reason why you get called up because he's been the best player in the last 2 weeks or whatever, and
Riles, what I used to tell players, and that has not changed, what you're talking about. I used to tell players that would get really down and like in the minors, I'd say, look, any kind of negative vibe that you're going to self-create is not going to get you where you want to go. And I said, if you're good enough, if it doesn't happen in this organization, it will happen in another organization, but you have to be good enough, and you can't allow yourself to have those thoughts, want him and think, well, he doesn't deserve to be there. And then all of a sudden you're in this sea of wallowing negativity, right? Where it's not going to happen. And I would also tell guys, when they sign a contract, I got a 3-year deal at whatever, 30 grand a year. My first year, I was a Flyers top pick. I was a 2nd-round pick, but they traded away their 1st-round pick. I had a 2-way contract, $9,500 for the minors and $12,500 if I got called up to the NHL. And the World Hockey Association came along, and when the WHA came along, the salary started to incrementally take bigger jumps. But when a guy would sign a contract, I'd say, "Can I make a suggestion?" They'd say, "Yeah, what?" I'd say, "Write the date, take a piece of paper, write the date, and write your emotions right now about how happy you are in this contract, and put it in an envelope and tuck it away in a desk drawer. And if you're ever unhappy about your contract, get it out and read it. And remember, nobody forced you to sign this."
Yeah.
Great advice.
True. Right?
100%.
Yeah, because don't allow yourself to fall into that trap.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
It's funny. Riles can tell you, and I know you know this, Billy, but my mornings, all these years, Riles can tell you how many guys are sitting in my office, and a lot of times it's guys coming in, closing my door just to have someone to talk to, and I just like listen. And I'm like, I actually got to sharpen some skates. Maybe I might put Dr. Nasty on my,
you're the shrink.
Thing. And of course I never minded doing that. Like it's part of it as being part of the staff, I think.
Yeah.
Even though I may not have answers, but you're right. Like guys, sometimes they just need an ear, or if they're going the wrong way, it's different for me. I wasn't a coach. I was their friend and their equipment guy. So I, try to pull them back without saying you're totally wrong, but
sure.
But you see it a lot. You see it, a lot.
Yeah.
So
I've never thought of it that way, but in your role, it's a whole different perspective. Yeah. You can be a sounding board, you can be an ear for somebody, but you have to show loyalty to all of the other players too.
Right.
So you can't take a side and say, "That's right, that guy is an ass."
Yeah, exactly.
Say, "Look, all I would tell guys that would end up with on a rant was, we need each other.
Yeah.
We need each other. And it's not up to us to make the decisions about who plays and who doesn't play." When I got traded to Atlanta, there was a guy named Claude Saint-Sauveur. There was a good offensive player. And as soon as I got there, I became the center on the number 2 power play unit. I took a lot of his ice time away. And I remember after I was there a couple of weeks, I said to Eric Vale, I said, "Boy, Saint's really quiet." He said, "No, he's not quiet." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "He just can't stand your guts." "Really?" He said, "Why?" He said, "Because you came and took his ice time." And I said, "Okay, thanks." So that day at practice, I skated up to him. I said, "Do you have 20 minutes after the practice to stop at the pub and have a beer with me?" He said, "Okay." So I went there, and he was puffing up. Right. I said, "Look," I understand that you're disappointed that your ice time has been taken away. I said, "I never asked to get that. I never asked for your ice time. I never asked to be traded here. I just wanted to come here and try to help any way the coach wanted me to help." I said, "I don't make the decisions. The coaching staff does. And if you have a problem with your ice time, I don't have a problem with you going to the coach and voicing that, that problem. But we need each other. We're still putting on the same jersey every day, and we got to go out and, play on the same team."
Right.
So I saw, if I can help you any way, I will. But, basically the message was, don't kill the messenger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly. I said, I'm not doing this intentionally. And it worked out great. We all of a sudden, he was a different guy after I had that conversation with him.
Yeah, it's amazing how a little communication can go so far, and but he's harboring some negative emotions, and just having that conversation give him a little clarity on how to express it. Because I think you mentioned earlier, like it's emotional intelligence. These young guys are immature a lot of the time. They don't exactly know how to express themselves, and usually lands up being a simple conversation, but that simple conversation is not that easy to have sometimes, right? So you hold it against the wrong person, and you're not moving forward. You're probably creating more friction than you ever needed to in the first place. But
I talked to, I have my own radio show in the Philly market for years. I mean, once a week, and I had Huffer on, Kerry Huffman, who you work with and really well. And I said, What's the hardest thing, what's your greatest challenge as a coach in the minor leagues? And he said, communication. I said, like getting the players to communicate with you. He said, getting them to communicate with one another. They sit on one side of the locker room and they'll text each other on the other side.
Yeah.
Verbal communication.
Crazy world.
Like, and it translates onto the ice too, right? I hated playing with guys that wouldn't open their mouths on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
God, it was hard. An extra set of eyes was so helpful.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. Because my set of eyes didn't see a lot of the things that were going on out there. People say, what's it like playing in an NHL game? I said, well, to some guys, they can see everything. To me, very often, it's just a blur of colors going like this.
That was like me. It was like,
yeah. It was blurry.
Yeah. Certainly helpful having a little communication, right? It's the oldest skill, for any sort of business or team to advance is communication. But yeah, I think that's a big thing, even more than probably when you talk to Huff, is that we're so digital. Even these guys leave the rink and they're probably sitting in the same household and they're playing video games against each other, and you know what I mean. And it's like there's no like eye to eye, and having those hard conversations are non-existent almost, right? So it's easier to just harbor that energy and not talk to your teammate or hold it against them, and and then it obviously turns into cancer after that. And I've seen it in my coaching days too. But the power of communication.
The sport of hockey is just a microcosm of our culture, right? I mean,
it's true. Yeah.
It's where we are.
Yeah.
So the sports people, the athletic organizations that understand how to break down some of those barriers and get the players to communicate and get the players to understand what they're trying to tell them, they're way ahead of the game. If you don't have rules about when the phones have to turn off,
right?
Yeah, that's right.
What do most teams do?
Well, when I was, I've been gone about a year. The phones, it was funny. The phones were off around 5, I think, but some guys use their phones for music, but you could tell no one was texting. They had their music on. Obviously, there's music going in the room, but everyone doesn't always agree with the music. So some guys do their own thing, but the phones went away. We never put them in anything.
Right.
There was talk of it because I know some teams did. They had a phone bag. They had a bag made. Yeah, there's a few teams that had that. And so I said, the guys were having a conversation about the phones. We got to get off the phones at this time. The TVs need to go off because, Sundays, if we played on a Sunday, the NFL's on the TV.
Yep.
And Saturday could be whatever. It could be basketball, football,
or golf or whatever.
Golf was a huge, golf was a big one.
Yeah.
So the TVs went off at a certain time and the phones were put away unless they were listening to music. So I think with the Flyer, with the guys that are now, they did a pretty good job with that. But I do know some teams were actually literally, they had a bag that they hung up and every guy had a number and they put their phone in it until they couldn't get it till after the game. So,
wow,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I guess the honor system didn't work so well.
Yeah, right. I think about distractions. I mean, I remember working with Terry Murray, and all I can think of when I think of Terry Murray is like focus, lack of concentration, focus. That's the only thing he said, but it's so true. It's like you have all these distractions. How can you focus when you're not practicing concentration by just being totally distracted by digital devices and whatever else? But it's a skill.
I'm not surprised. Terry Murray was my roommate my first year in Ottawa in the OHA.
Really?
We got drafted the same year. We were in the same draft, and I'm not surprised that he used few words because I roomed with him for a year, and I think he said 4 words the whole year.
Focus and concentration.
I knew at least knew what he was doing. He was focusing and concentrating.
Oh my God! That's
beautiful. Right on, Billy. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode, man. I really appreciate you.
We held you a little long there, buddy.
That's okay. Riles, you always helped me, man. When I was, I had my radio show. I think I must have had you on, I don't know, 8 times.
Yeah.
10 times, like once a year.
Talking about the skills.
Let's talk about the skills. Eating some crab fries and whatever else you had.
We shared our stories on skill, and that ate up the first 2 minutes of the show. And then we had We had to get real creative after that.
But Billy, you should see him, and he's joined our men's league team here, and he's a skilled player in this men's league. I'm telling you what, boys love playing with him. Yeah, he joined us, and well, he's missed a few games. He's a busy man, and plus, if it's past our games past 7, Billy, he's in bed because I don't know if you know that about Riley. He's in bed early because he's up doing yoga early morning. So I
will not. I think I read from the same Bible, so I will not hold that against him. Yeah, I'm an early to bed, early riser myself.
Yeah, the problem with me is I'm a late to bed but an early riser. It's going to catch me. It's going to catch me soon. I do need some Z's.
Yeah.
Oh man, but we really do appreciate you taking the time and joining us. It's awesome.
Man, it's been great.
We really do.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure. And I'm not, anybody that sees this, I'm not going to tell them that I was your 33rd choice that this is your 33rd show.
Number 1 in our heart.
Yep.
See?
We were team.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Appreciate it. That episode was brought to you by Settlemyre Skate Sharpening. For all your hockey needs and the best sharpening in town, visit settlemyrescatesharpening.com or visit Nasty. And he's got the steel, as is Howie.
Howie's got the steel, and he's let me use it. So we got it, man. It's blowing out the door too. And I'm not kidding. It's guys are getting a hold of it. So it's awesome. It's really, really good.
Beauty.
I wish I could take the credit for the steel. I just have it.
You just got it.
Howie's the guy.
You got the goods.
And
bodycheckwellness.com for your CBD and functional mushroom needs. Check it out at bodycheckwellness.com. And a big thank you to Mr. Bill Clement for carving out the time and sitting down with us and sharing some stories. What what an interesting dude, eh?
Man, I tell you, he's done it all. He's done it all, man.
He's done it all.
Like I never knew he literally was trying to be an actor. Well, I mean, I guess he was.
He was. Yeah. I had no idea either.
I mean, gosh, that's pretty wild, man. But one of my favorite things was him talking about Clarkie and just being, which I think we all kind of knew, but to hear stories about him, getting after Hawk, McLeish, during the finals and coming up to Billy and basically persuading him without giving him an ultimatum.
Yeah, right.
Making him feel like such a part of the team, which is what good people, good leaders do. He ends up playing and they end up winning, I thought that was super, super cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I agree. I think everyone kind of knew about Clarkie's leadership. To hear it firsthand from a good guy that played with him for several years and share those types of stories, it's pretty powerful stuff. There's no question, and that there's a reason why he's goes down as one of the ultimate leaders in hockey. So. And there's some other really funny stories. He's got some incredible stories, playing stories, but also like post playing, with the some of the ads and the repellent and the beer and all this other stuff that he had going on. So he's lived quite a unique life, from
he sure has
essentially going bankrupt and losing everything after he'd played the NHL to rebuilding his brand and finding his niche. Was acting seemed to be like a stepping stone. The speaking. He owns like a speaker series type of a business, as well as his broadcasting business throughout how many years and how many different networks. So pretty amazing guy.
Yeah, he really is. It really is. It's impressive you hear all that. You hear a lot of, unfortunately, you hear about guys that, they weren't making the money the guys are now, but it was also, they were making decent money because money was different then.
Yeah.
But to lose it, go in right away, you retire, you saved up money, throw it into a venture and poof.
Yeah.
Houdini poof, it's gone. To grab yourself and, turn it back around. So it's pretty amazing, but you can tell he's a very, very sharp individual. So
he is. And I really like Billy. I mean, he's been good to me over the years. I've been on several of his shows and he's always got a positive attitude, and he's always engaged. But yeah, it was nice to connect with him on this level and be the interviewer, if you want to call it that, and
right.
stories out of him. But yeah, he's solid dude.
He is solid dude. I always liked when he would travel, he'd come with the team. Jonesy was stuck at NBC, the national broadcast. Billy would always be with us, and I used to love headed to the airport, sometimes sitting back there with him and kind of picking his brain, which I would do with Jonesy too, just about hockey, because I'm kind of a hockey nerd. But it's nice to hear guys, and because you play it, I ask you stuff too, but it's nice to get their take on it, because they see so much hockey, because they have to know about the next team the Flyers are playing, what's going on over here, because that stuff comes up when they're on their shows and stuff like that. It's just nice to pick his brain with hockey, a lot when he was with the team and I was with the team. So really good man. Always good to me as well. My dad, even when Billy was with the team doing broadcasting, he's like, him and Doc Emmerich would always take him and Kurt and Turk out to dinners, all the time. He's like, they were just just super guys, man.
Yeah. No doubt. What an incredible memory too for 7 years old. And I don't want to underplay the age here, but to talk about his stories, it's kind of like you could just tell the story with absolute detail, like it was yesterday. It's hard to believe.
He doesn't look 70. He's in great shape, and he's so sharp.
Sharp.
I probably will not see 70. Just by the way I live. No, I'm kidding, but he is. I hope I'm that sharp. If I make it that long, I hope he looks great. I hope I make it that long, and I hope I'm as sharp as he is, because he like you said, man, listen to him talk, man. You can just listen to him. He's just got so many stories, and awesome guy to get the chit chat with. So we're fortunate to have him.
That is the truth. We only got 40 more years, Nast, to 70. So
you're right. Yeah, that's close.
You're getting there.
Hey, Elvis the other day, I don't know if you said it, but someone said my age, and
he gets devastated.
He loses. He does not. He cries.
He cries. Yeah.
He literally gets upset, and I'm like, buddy, don't worry, man. It's a number, bro. And he's like, but you're not that old. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want me to be is what I am. That's what I was saying. You're 35. That's what he always said. You're 35. I said, okay, go with it. That's it.
You're the anti-aging machine.
I don't know why it bothers him so much, but
you'll get over it in next year. Forget about it.
Peyton and Bryce are always like, LB, Daddy's not 35, and he's like, he wants to fight, boy. He's like, I don't know why, but anyway, Billy looks great.
Yep.
And he was awesome, man. He was awesome guest. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right on. Well, that wraps up episode 33 with Mr. Bill Clement.
My first number.
My first number. Yeah, I forgot about that.
People, man, that's a little trivia.
To donate it back to Bush 33.
Yeah, that's right.
Sign him the following year. But be sure to tune in next week for episode 34. Until then, stay safe. Be sure to have some fun.
See you, knuckleheads.
All right, knuckleheads.